The 17th is coming. We need to get scrambling. Let's go. All right, welcome back everyone. Today's gonna be packed. Last time you saw me put the fabric on, put the sanding sealer on, and while it all looked really nice already, it still looked very rough, not really like a guitar. So today we're gonna get the guitar into its final shape. We're gonna put some binding on, and then after that we're gonna put even more sanding sealer on to get a really nice gloss. And then we're gonna move forward with the neck. Enough talk, let's go. So to get to the final shape of the body is actually relatively straightforward. I simply attach the original template to the body again and then use the flush trim router bit to cut off the excess. For the binding channel, we're doing it similarly. I'm just using a bit that is following the shape of the body, and the blades are slightly wider than the bearing, so it'll cut a very narrow channel into the veneer. Alright, now that looks like a guitar. That is gonna be a beauty. However, as always, the last part is always where the shit happens. So it did have some tear out here. Not entirely sure what I'm gonna do about that yet. There is a little bit of tear out up here on the veneer, but that doesn't really matter because we're gonna put on binding anyway. This one is what worries me. We'll fix it for sure somehow. I just don't know how yet. I'm glad to say we did avert the crisis. After a little bit of consideration and a couple of drinks, I did cut off a little strip of veneer and soaked it in water overnight. In the morning, I then dried it in the oven for a couple of hours, and while that was drying, I cleaned up the tear out with a Dremel. And then after it dried, I glued the strip in. I also cleaned up the body tear out part, and I actually used a part of the original cut off for that part just to match the grain. I basically cut and sanded it to size and also glued it in. I then sanded the whole body, and after that was done, I used some of that sawdust to fill in the gaps with CA glue. And now it pretty much looks as good as new. The binding process is actually a really interesting process. The binding is made of ABS plastic, which melts when it comes into contact with acetone. So you just put a little acetone on the binding channel, then press the binding against it, and then just hold it in place with tape for a while. And that's pretty much it. Okay, now that this is all drying and curing and all that good stuff, we're gonna move forward with the neck. And the neck is really one of my favorite parts, really. It's just so calming. You just sit there and you're sculpting a beautiful neck with just your hands, or at least hand tools. So yeah, I'm really excited about this part. I hope you will enjoy watching this too. So before anything else, I'm cutting the truss rod channel. I just use a router and a jig I built for that. After that, I just clean it up and widen the top for the truss rod screw. Then we're moving on to the fretboard. I basically just glue it to the neck, choosing the part of grain pattern I like most. And after routing off the excess, it's time for the fret slots already. There's a million different approaches when it comes to the order of the steps in making a neck. This one seemed right for me at the time with regards to time management and just because it's easier for me to position the frets in the nut. So this is the part I really like the most. From here on out, it's basically only hand tools. In my case, my tool of choice is a Shinto saw rasp. I basically start with a certain height at the head and the heel, and then start to gradually remove material and shape the neck to that thickness. In theory, it's really quite simple actually. You start with 2 edges and then just shave them off so you're left with 4. Then you do the same to those 4, so you have 8, and so on until you have your desired C shape. Alright, so we are almost done with the neck. I'm really happy how it turned out so far. The heel edges here, really nice, and the curves here on the head, beautiful. Very happy with that. But now comes the nerve-wracking part. You might remember this thing here that we buried inside of the neck. It's called a truss rod. It gives this whole neck some stability. So in case of moisture, etc., it would not bend. In case it does bend, you have this little thing that you can actuate and kind of bend the neck one way or the other. However, to do that, you need access to it. And that's why we will need to drill a hole here. So fingers crossed that I will actually hit the truss rod. Let's go.
3 hours later.
Alright, there it is. We are going to clean that up a little bit, but overall, glad I was able to get that. Man, that was episode 3 already. That was quick. But, looks really nice. I'm really happy with the progress so far. You can see it is actually going to be a guitar at some point. Yeah, really nice. However, there's still so much work to do. So next time we are going to do the cavities, we're going to do the frets, we're going to do some fret markers, and at some point also the electronics. So yeah, there's still a lot to do. But all in due time. So thank you for watching. Thank you for your support. If you don't mind, hit like, hit subscribe. And yeah, see you next time. Thank you. Bye.